Today I spoke with Copenhagen-based retoucher Emre Duymaz. From him starting in London's retouching industry to now running his own studio, we talked about his experiences scaling his own retouching business to managing other retouchers, and he told me a particular story you'll want to hear regarding growing pains after moving to a new city and trying to acquire new clients. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome to the Wrap Party Podcast. I am Peter Hunner with VeryBusy.io. Today we have another guest from across the pond here, actually even more than across the pond, but Emre Duymaz, very well-seasoned retoucher, is sitting in the chair with us today to talk about, well, his career and how he got through and up into retouching. And, you know, he's worked everywhere for some larger companies. He's on his own, has opened his own studio, notable clients, you know, Meta, Facebook, eBay. He's worked with some of the best. And we're going to chat with them, learn how he came up in the industry. We're going to get into some deeper stuff as well as talking about working with others, work-life balance, and a whole slew of things that kind of come with owning your own studio and making it in the retouching world. So Emre, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
Oh yeah, I was excited to have you on because, you know, we have some parallels in our own careers, but I mean, you've been around a long time and you've kind of experienced a lot of different facets within the retouching world, whether it be where you're working, how you're working. But, you know, let's just start off from where it all started. How did you kind of get your first foot in the door? How did you get introduced to like the retouching post-production photography world?
Awesome. Okay, so for me, it was a fortunate right place, right time. I was in high school and it was just before college. Or no, I started college. In England we have A-levels, so that's effectively college. But after repeating a year before, I just thought academia is not for me. I couldn't lock it in. I couldn't focus, and I got more involved with time wasting, but you know, in a nice way. So the subjects I did excel at were media studies.
Yeah.
And to break that down further, it was specifically the courseworks for media studies that I kind of, you know, I enjoyed, and I got a good mark, and I passed. Sure, you know, exams and stuff I failed, but the coursework was, you know, hey. And I remember my first foray, that's the word, I never used that word before, but the first time I used some kind of editing application was mirrored off Photoshop, you know, but it was what was it? Jask Paint Shop Pro.
Paint Shop Pro.
And it was a free demo I got from mine and my sister's Packard Bell. Do you remember that? Yeah, Packard Bell computer.
Packard,
and it came,
yeah.
and it was pretty much layers and tools, and it was the same as Photoshop. So I was messing about with that a lot, but at the time I was doing a lot of graphic stuff. So paint buckets and just different fonts, thefonts.com. I was just doing all that kind of stuff, and I was loving it. And then so I didn't really know about Photoshop using for images. Like I remember stupidly like putting my head on 50 Cent's body and going, "This is amazing."
Yeah.
This is that. And
50
maybe that
Cent's
was
body.
my first head swap. And I didn't color grade. I didn't color correct anything. It was just like my head on top of 50 Cent's body. And I thought that was hilarious. But cut to a few years later, and then a friend of mine, an old friend, he came to school visiting one day after he left academia, and then he got a job in the city, and then he came and he said, you know, this is where I'm working, we do this type of work. And I was just kind of blown away, and instantly I was just like, I want in, please.
Yeah, you know.
Can you like get me in? And then I went for an interview. Luckily they were this agency in London, a place called Tapestry, they were hiring maybe one junior a year. So, you know, it's quite a privilege to get in there, and it was probably one of the best. It was the best move for a boy at the time that didn't really know where he was going.
So you're pretty green when you got into that junior position? Would you say like, yeah?
Yeah, pretty much. So I went for the interview. I really showed them that I wanted it. Like I was so eager. And then, I got the job. And then on the Friday, I quit I left my part-time retail job in the supermarket. And then on Monday, I was working in Soho in central London at this like really established reprographic house, a place called Tapestry. And then I started my apprenticeship, and it wasn't retouching straight away. It was large format printing, mounting installations, gallery installations.
Nice, like finishing kind of gallery
finishing
work.
But luckily because it wasn't a full-on print shop, it was an advertising agency with retouching, artworking, and we had our own little facility to do large format. For looking back now, it was probably, it's probably for like a lot of pitch work, a lot of pitches, a lot of clients that needed like their artworks printed large and like glossed, animated and everything so they could show. And we were
present and
we were probably the ones in the city that did that. And then anything more bigger runs, it would go to natural printers. But it was that for a good year, just printing, just working with paper, board, mounting any material to anything, making. I remember even at the time we were building prototype boxes for mobile phones. For O2 and stuff. Just random stuff. And for a young kid, that was just amazing. Like,
I mean, that's pretty cool. I'd love to do something like that. Yeah.
It was so nice using. We were going through like hundreds of scalpel blades a week because we were just cutting, and it was so nice to just use your hands to do something. And then naturally that progressed to, okay, you've done this for a period of time. Where in the building do you see yourself going? And we had artworking, we had, as I said, retouching. There was a photography studio. We had C-type printing. We had film printing. And then I came across the retouching department, and I was just blown away. I was like, you guys get paid to play on Photoshop, like,
right?
And it kind of hit me. I was like, yeah, of course. People need to do this. You need people to physically do this. Yeah. And then, so that was it. That was my first step into retouching.
Great. How was, so it's kind of like the kind of the story of entering through the mailroom, then working yourself up into the company kind of thing,
much. Yeah, pretty much.
When you kind of made that move up and decided, hey, retouching, I like this, I want to learn more in that. Like, what was your experience going, like, so say you were there for a while and then they bumped you up, you got a new position somewhere in the retouching kind of track.
Yeah.
What was your first experience walking into that? Like, was it really a true like an apprenticeship, or were you like learning on the job, or like, how did that function?
It was learning on the job. So that's the good thing. So there was several apprentices before me, and there were several apprentices afterwards. And I think towards the end they started to slow down with recruitment because the industry was entering, the economic landscape at the time was kind of very uncertain. It was coming up to 2008, and that's where, all the problems started happening. But I got my first retouching was a lot of assisting, a lot of cleanup, a lot of like dusting. But I was remembering today, preparing for this, I was like, what did I do? And then I went on the Google thing, and we had one account called Dorling Kindersley. It's like a big publishing company in the UK, and they were bought out a few years ago by Penguin, but they were the biggest producers of visual books and encyclopedias. And when you open the book and it's just like random pictures and everything, it's these guys.
It's all that stuff. Yep.
So the account was, it felt like, looking back now, it just felt a bit dodgy. But you'd meet a guy outside a building, he'd give you a bag full of, like a brown paper bag full of hundreds of transparencies, film scans, and then you'd give him a hard drive, and then you'd go, okay, see you next week, and then you'd walk, and then you'd come back. The film, the negatives or the transparencies will be scanned, drum scanned or flatbed scanned. Then the files would be sent to us. We would crop, straighten, clean, dusting, rebuild. At the time, some transparencies had cracks and they were just old. They had the biggest archive of transparencies that they needed to digitize.
Oh man!
So that was an account. That was quite one of the big accounts that they had. And obviously, what you do with a big account, you give to a junior. You give to a
give
to someone just to you look after this. This is your job.
Same thing every week. Yeah.
And my friend Tom, he was looking after the account when I got there, and it was literally 300-400, if not more, a week files that you were creating, and as I said, straightening, dusting, cropping, a little S curve, just pop and then save. I don't think we kept layered because that's the kind of volume. You just do the original. It was like 50 megabyte scan, crop, 48 megabyte, save, and then do that, repeat. So that was my foundation of cleanup. That was what the muscle memory.
That pretty fast at that volume, yeah.
Yeah. So luckily it wasn't like sweatshop fast. Mm-hmm. You had time because they wanted a good job, but yeah, also, at the time, at that time, it wasn't the idea of a sweatshop clipping house farm
Yeah.
wasn't. I don't think it was known, and also for the lack of like high-speed internet back then, it
I mean,
wasn't
yeah.
it
Sending
wasn't a
gigs.
thing. So, you would pay someone to sit there with their cup of coffee and, just clean and like, no, 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 no. That was our job. So that was my foundation. So I think doing that for so long, and then layering on top of that, you get little jobs and, change the color of this couch for this magazine and this catalog. And then, bit by bit would build up. So that was my first like entry into retouching.
Nice.
And it was good because that was just muscle memory, clean up, eye for detail, learning the keyboard. It was just like a lot
I
of,
mean, kind of the foundation of being a good
your eyes didn't
retoucher.
leave the keyboard. It was just like, no, your eyes didn't leave the screen. You're just like doing everything. And so, yeah, so if that answered your question, that was my
Yeah,
first.
no, that's great. Like, and that sounds like was it a good experience then overall? It sounds like it's kind of an ideal way, kind of like when people ask, how do you get into retouching? Well, this is, it's kind of step by yours seems pretty like that trajectory seems nice. And like,
Yeah, I
like,
go from 50 cents body to
yeah,
me doing this for a company in London. That's the stepping stones. But no, I think it was very fundamentally important for my career because it also instilled in you some kind of, there's a process for this.
yeah,
You shouldn't rush it. No matter how basic the task is, you should respect it. And, there's a client that needs these files at the end of the week who then needs that for 50 publications they're working on. So I didn't maybe didn't think of it at the time, but yeah, you are part of a well-oiled machine. So it'd be a terrible shame if you came in and you ruined something that's working. So
right.
that gave me some kind of like framework to kind of, okay, I do this job nicely and I could learn and I can move on and do something else.
Yeah, and talking about this client in general, it sounds like it was kind of one of their bread and butter clients. Like, probably paid bills well because it was consistent every week. You can put your juniors
Yeah,
on it.
I think they were happy with that client. And
People
there
can
was
learn on it.
there
Not,
was there was other clients as well, but because from that point after that doing that for a period, they moved me to artworking, so InDesign and Illustrator. And they sold it to me as, you get to learn more. You get to
Yeah.
learn more applications. And for me, I was like, but I just want to do Photoshop. I just want to retouch. So I did that for like, I think it wasn't more than a year. I was artworking for another big account. I think it was Sony PlayStation at the time.
oh, geez.
And
And you were like, nope, I don't like it. I want to go back.
you know what? Honestly, it was a lot of copy. It was a lot of proofreading. It was a lot of
Oh, yeah, it's completely different.
tedious kind of text and like, that full stop is 2 pixels too far
Yeah.
to the right. You need to
Oh,
rock it
my
down. And then it was just like, my brain doesn't work like this. I'm sorry. Some people can lock in at those types of informations and
Yeah.
they get it. They enjoy, a perfect layout, whatever. But the only Photoshop I was doing was like making pack shots for the Sony PlayStation DVDs, like the quarter angle,
Oh, yeah.
the quarter angle, game box.
Right.
You drop the graphic and then you update the spine and just like I miss cleaning transparencies, like 500 transparencies.
Yeah,
So
you
I
like
went
that
back to
more.
that, and then that was me until the company hit a hard time and a lot of us were let go. But
Okay.
that was a good fundamental 3 years worth of apprenticeship. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
so
got
how-
me into the industry.
How long were you there for then?
I think, the dates are always hazy in my head, but I think I was there like for a few years, like 3 years.
Sounds like
and
a few
then
years, yeah.
I left.
And that was in London. Now, did
Yeah.
you from there? Then where did you go? Did you stay? Because right now you're in Copenhagen, right?
Yeah, Copenhagen there
Yeah.
in 2017. So
How did you
London-
make it out there? And like within London, did you have any other retouching jobs or?
Yes, quite a lot. So London, so that time, a lot of people were out of work because the industry just got, the industry was hit hard by the, I think, 2008 crash.
Yeah.
And then that was around 2008. And then 2009, when I was made redundant, along with many others from the company, it was simply because they'd lost a huge account.
Yeah. I mean, that's-
I think, from my memory, it was the printers that handled all the work for this main account. They went directly to the client and said, "We'll handle all your retouching and
oh, yeah.
artwork if you give us more printing." That was roughly how I remember the story. So
Ouch.
the building couldn't compete with free.
Yeah,
And then we
I
lost
mean-
the account, and then instantly think 30 people left. So from that point on, I had a 2-week holiday booked to Cancun with some friends. Yeah. So that was an okay pick me up after being let go after 3
Go
years.
sit in the sun on the beach.
Right, and then yeah, I think I started a bit of freelancing. I'm not sure, but I think it was freelancing, and then I found a retouch studio, Pack Shop Factory, in London, Tottenham Court Road, and they were a nice team that took me on as freelance, and they knew I was still a junior, but I was young and I was able to learn more and work, and that was another great stepping stone because that was still life. So that was a different side of retouching. So whereas I came from, say, cleanup, now I can focus on product and materials and everything from anything and everything you can imagine in a still life studio.
Yeah.
And that's another way of building up the skill set, because where else can I rebuild like ultra high definition denim on a product shot, or stitching on some leather goods, or food, cosmetics, it was pharmaceuticals, everything was going through that studio.
Yeah.
So that was another few years.
Really
and then I left.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I left for I left to do a compositing course at Nuke.
Interesting.
So expensive. And
Oh God.
I never used it. Because at the time me and a friend were like, the retouching industry, there's not much in it. There's not much money in it, We were like, oh, there's not much money here, man. What can we do? Let's go to the VFX world.
Let's go.
And then we found this course, this very expensive crash course, and then it was over like that. And I didn't, again, at dyslexia in school, it was all this like really complex stuff to learn in 12 weeks.
Yeah, I bet.
It's like, so does everyone understand 3D rotoscoping? Then I'm like, okay, we move on to the next thing. I was just okay. And then, I finished that course, and then that's when I was like, okay, I'll do a little. I got a little internship at the Mill. It's a VFX house in London.
Okay.
And again, I'm at that point, I'm like a 24, 25-year-old, maybe a bit older. And then I'm serving people orange juice and cups of coffee at this VFX house. And I'm like, I didn't expect this. This wasn't what I had in mind.
A little more hands-on.
Yeah, and then me and my friend, we went back to freelance retouching, to pay the bills in that time. And then that's when we realized, you can earn good day rates retouching, and we're experienced. Yeah. And that was it. Since then, nothing but retouching. So freelancing in London for a couple of years, and then I got a full-time job at one of the studios. And then I left them at the end of 2016. I gave them like a year's notice. I was like, I'm moving to Copenhagen at the end of the year.
Okay.
So here's a year's notice. And then my girlfriend at the time wanted to move back to Denmark, and I thought, let me go for 5-6 months, make it work.
Nice.
And then that turned into 10, 11 months, and then that turned into a year, and then I started a business, and then I had a kid, and then I had another kid, and then
You're never leaving.
you know how it goes. And then that was my journey in a nutshell, like the slimmed down version.
Great.
So, yeah.
Well, I was gonna, making the move. Let's talk about, it sounds like you jumped from a few different companies, 2 different shops, whether it be the VFX or retouching or stuff like that, and then you kind of landed where you are now and started your own business. So it's how did you decide not to seek out maybe another full-time job, but kind of go out on your own and kind of establish your own company, and start working for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question, Peter. No, I would say I came here with the intention of, like, confidently and not being big-headed. I came here thinking, I'm gonna own this market here. Little tiny Denmark with their 5 million people. Copenhagen with its 1 million people, like at the time, like I think just under 1 million or just over. But I was like, I'm gonna clean up here, no problem. Look at all the experience I have. Look at all these high-end brands I work with in London. Mm-hmm. Look at all the images I took with my portfolio. Like, I'll be fine. Everyone's asking, is there work out there? I'm like, yeah, it's like the land of fashion and interior design. There's plenty of work. If anything, there's plenty of work to give me my share, and
Yeah. Right.
doing all my research on like how much you can earn, and wow, the Danish kroner, it's like, it's really expensive there, but you could earn this much more. And then I came here, and then I reached out to, at the time I think there was like 3 retouch studios. This was before retouch studios started to pivot into more grading and CGI stuff. It was just like retouch. We do stills and print. And then I reached out to them, and I met a couple, and it was like, yeah, there's no budgets here. There's no...
There's work, but no budgets.
Yeah, essentially. Like one guy was showing me around his like beautiful, like lovely villa that was converted into like a studio, and like, you know, computers up here, we have the printers here, this is the lovely kitchen, this is the coffee machine, you know. I was like, I think I'm like
$15,000 sign. Yeah.
I would love to work with you guys. And it's like a 10-minute bike ride, and I live down the road. I'm like, yeah. And then he's like, but you know, there's just no money here, man. There's just no money here. And I'm in his studio, like all dressed nicely, like,
Yeah.
What did you...
For free? What?
What do you mean? And he was like, and what I realized was, it was, if there is budgets, it's, you know, closed networks, it's behind closed doors, or it's done in-house at the main brands, and a lot of favors, a lot of, or very like really low budgets. So I reached out to a couple, like women's magazines, like fashion magazines. And then I found a couple photographers to work with, and then it was just like I did that for a little bit, a few runs, and just like this isn't working. As in, there's literally zero business here for me. So I even forgot your question, Peter. But I think I started reaching back to UK clients.
Okay, yeah.
And relying on them to send me work. So that's how I.
That's kind of the beauty of retouching, and probably at the time too when you were there. I mean, being able to work remotely. Yeah. I mean, like nowadays and age, you can have clients anywhere in the world, really, if it works out, right? I was just thinking, there's a digital tech retoucher here in town, Heather Byington, who had outfitted a little while back. She had a van, one of those big like cargo vans. She converted to like a traveling kind of like sleeper van, but then she had a desk and a workstation in it, so she could like drive down to the desert and hang out and work on her Starlink. I think she had like, what was it, the Starlink Tesla internet or whatever, and it's kind of cool. You if you got the proper setup.
Sounds risky, but it sounds cool.
It could be very risky, yeah.
Why can't you send the files? Because the rain is interrupting this.
It's cloudy today.
Yeah. Can you wait 24 hours? No. Yeah.
What you did. Well, so going out on your own then, so you reached back to London, got some kind of trying to bring back some clients there, and I assume now, I mean, do you feel like, I always feel like sometimes some cities, Minneapolis is kind of like this, some other cities I've experienced are like this, like the commercial photography, post-production, the industries can be very cliquey, like, you know, if you kind of grew up there and your career kind of grew up in a certain area and you learn to know a lot of people and you're kind of in the industry, things, you know, of course, doors probably open up a bit easier. It's easier to crack an egg or get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
But if you just land in a new city and trying to like, you know, send emails, cold calls or this and that, without maybe referrals or this or that, it can kind of be hard until you've been there a little bit and gotten to know some people. And, you know, being there for, how many years have you been there now?
6.
6. Yeah. Do you feel that it opened up a bit for you? Like, or do you still feel it's kind of like a harder market there anyways, and you're still looking outside for clients?
It's a very hard market. And what I enjoy telling people, a fun fact about my business is, in the 7 years I've been here, I think I've invoiced 2 Danish clients.
Really?
I've maybe done like 2 invoices in 7 years.
Amazing. Oh, that's crazy to hear. Yeah.
I stopped bothering. I stopped looking around. At the end of 2018, I sent so many emails, so many introduction messages, LinkedIn, and just finding brands here, finding photographers. It was very simple, like very easy going. Hey, I'm here. This is what I do. Check out the website. At the time, it was check out this PDF that I tried my best to shrink down.
Yeah.
Have a look. Then I discovered we transfer business. I was like, check out this link or check out my website. And then, I stopped. And then I only recently, I think last year, I found out that it's actually illegal to cold call in Denmark.
Seriously?
Something like that.
That's interesting.
You have to make contact first and say, is it okay if I come to you with more information and show you this service? They have to say, yes, sure, here's the email. And then you can make the sale.
Interesting.
For them to ignore. That's what I found out.
I mean, that is kind of nice.
Yeah. I was like, but why didn't anyone tell me this? And then the few people that did respond to me in that 2018 search, it was like one guy who was actually looking for a retoucher to join his team because he wanted to do more advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And one Scottish guy from Carlsberg who replied because, it was nice to just reply. But no one else replied. So yeah, that's when I had to reach back to UK clients and be like, let me know, as in I'm only an internet, like an internet link away, like.
Right, yeah.
I'm ready. But the issue at the time was a lot of retouching houses in London were very privacy heavy. It was just like, we don't want to send anything outside. Yeah. We don't want to, that's too risky for us. We can't send it to you. And then I was like, I was able to get by with several days a month, and studios like Studio Private and the Laundry Room, and they were booking me nicely, so that was fine. And then this little thing called COVID happened.
Oh yes.
And and then as in savage across the world and industries, but for me it was like a bit of a light bulb moment. And then that's where everyone was like, oh, Emre, you've got your own studio retouching your internet, like Denmark is ridiculous fiber net. It's like, it's so cheap,
nice.
And
good
so
infrastructure.
Good. And then instantly overnight I became like the one to help people with projects that were booked months before and that were currently being worked on, and we couldn't be finished in-house because people couldn't sit next to each other and people couldn't be in the same room, and people didn't have that kind of equipment at home. And then all these companies are just scrambling to like hire equipment from these hire companies to like send it to this person's address. And, that was expensive, and then this person's upload isn't fast enough, so that's useless. And then just overnight I was the person to just, can you do this? Can you do this? And then that's when I was, instead of saying, yeah, but I'm booked from, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with this person. That's when I was like, of course, let me do that. Yes, and yours. Yeah, I'll take that as well. And then that's when I started layering. And at the time, I didn't tell people that I was juggling these multiple plates at one time.
I mean, for retouching though, it's something that you can make it work, especially because you're not. I mean, I guess it depends on the project, but you have time where you're waiting for feedback or this, you can jump from. I think it's hard for some people to jump from project to project, but if you've got that mindset where you can jump in and out of projects. Yeah,
definitely. And at the time, it's also the way you're booked. If someone is paying you for a day, totally fair for them to assume you're just theirs for those 8 hours.
Yeah, I think it depends.
But you can maybe do 8 hours worth of work in 6 hours, or you can maybe do 4 hours in the morning and save the rest of the work for the evening. So I think once people understood, and then I started to move away from day rates to project-based rates or hourly rates.
Yeah, that probably helped a lot.
And that made it a bit more fruitful for me, and it made the clients a bit more comfortable with sending me, because they could say like, okay, I'm busy, but if you need these files back by X day in the week, Thursday, fine. You'll get a link from me Thursday morning. And so we didn't really go into the details.
Yeah, it opens up some doors. It helps out.
It was also the busy restaurant mentality. If there's you're going to go to the restaurant that's full of people with a queue outside, you're going to go to that one instead of the quiet, empty one next door.
The food must be good there, yeah.
Yeah, so I started using it as a leverage, as like a bargaining chip. Like, I'll take this lookbook on. It's quite busy at the moment, but I'll do it this evening, or I'll see if I can get someone on the weekend. And I think people were soon like, yeah, okay, Emre can deliver, and then it's been non-stop since.
I think it's the mindset of you can deliver, but also like you're doing them a favor. Hey, I'm busy, but I'm going to do you a favor here, and then they'll think about that next time they need some help, right? Like, hey,
100%.
I know who got it done last time. They even worked over the weekend on it, and they got it to us, and it was great.
100%. That's it. As in, never. I was saying yes to everything.
Yeah. Well, so then I have this question for you, because this was something I had to learn about, or experience, learn, and then, deal with
Yeah.
and create a system about. But, you know, you kind of, I think we have talked about this before, but, saying yes to everything,
Yeah.
learning to say no to certain things. But,
That comes later
say,
on.
yeah, when people ask you, can you do this? You say yes, and you just say yes saying, hey, I'll figure it out later. I'll figure out how to do it later, but I'll say yes just to get it. As you do that more and more, you learn what you should say yes to, what you should say no to, as you get more experience. But, how did you manage kind of workload like that? I guess, you said, you have a family, of course, you have kids. If you had to work late nights, if you had to work weekends, scheduling, did you need to bring somebody else on? How do you manage your workload when things are, busy, maybe exceeding what you yourself could do, or you have enough time for in a day?
So another great question. I go back to, there was a period of time where I was just doing everything. Everything was on me. So there were days where I would work till 3 or 4 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
And it sucked because you're also working from, you're running on fumes, you're tired, but you've made promises. And I've learned to give myself more time to do tasks. Okay. So now I know, instead of saying, I'll have this ready for you for Monday morning, now I say Tuesday, because who knows what's coming on Monday or how I
of course.
But at the time I was doing everything, and this was before I was using freelancers and clipping path studios, and I was just doing everything. And I was working in the guy who wanted me to work in his studio because he wanted to do more advertising, which never happened. I moved in, it was like a co-work space. I was like, this is cheaper than the last place I was at. This is awesome. Freezing in winter, but this is nice. This is cool. It's a studio downstairs, like an infinity cove, and
Oh,
but
cool.
then he went on. He saw a huge market in kit hire, like C stands, and he was fabricating everything himself. So he kind of left photography and moved into that. So I was like, okay,
funny.
well, we're not going to work together. And then I moved home. We were able to get a bigger apartment, so I had a home office. So that was a huge advantage, being able to work from home, being able to just close the door and be like, I'm going to do an all-nighter.
Yeah.
And that was slightly before. No, we had one kid at the time, and that's when I was getting busier. And then it was just me doing everything, Peter. I was just burning out. And
hands are I know that feeling that you said at like 3 o'clock in the morning. You're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, you're like,
why did I do this?
And when you're working that late, there's room for errors.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too, is like
you make
quality
mistakes,
work.
or you don't save that file, or you do something and then you lose something. It's just like, there needs to be. And I remember the first time I have like a jewelry client, and the first time I'd be pathing everything myself. It's crazy. As in,
I mean, it's so time consuming. Especially what you're doing.
And in London, I remember in London we would only one studio out, like the roster of clients I had in London would send work to be clipped in India. Only once. No, it was this company CPA in Thailand. Only one studio used them, and they were saving so much time because everything was coming back instantly or the next day ready to go. So their expensive day rate retouchers were just retouching.
Yeah.
And I had another studio where the expensive day rate retouchers were there clipping.
Being
so
paid,
just like, that was a huge learning curve for me. Like, I don't want to do that. So, but to protect myself, I was blocking my images out. So, if this is the model, I was just lassoing the detail parts. It's just butchering the photo enough that it was useless to the person clipping it in the other country. That this photo wasn't going to appear on their Behance or their page.
Right.
I didn't want to do, and I didn't want to be like, hey, client, is it okay if I send your lookbook? So I was just butchering. I was just protecting myself. And the first, I think it hit me at like midnight one night. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And then I found the website that these guys use, and I sent them a test file. They did it, and then I sent them like 150 files. And then the wait just like,
something that would take you days to do. You had
and then I went to bed. I woke up the next day, and there was a link in my inbox. It was all done, and then that's when I started to shift the optics of, okay, now I can buy my time back. So that was the important stepping stone for me too.
I think that's an incredibly important point you make, though, because I think some people, I think it's getting less, some people have an opinion about, okay, if you're a retoucher sending your work out to get help on, like what are the limitations? What does this mean? All that kind of stuff. But being able to, designate the right job to the right people, if your client's coming in or if you have a certain set budget or if you have time restraints, sending out 150 images to get clipped overnight is going to help you and your client.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, both cost, both time, all that kind of stuff, and you have more time to spend on quality retouching work. It's a job that I mean, it always depends too. It's like if you're asking for some complicated stuff, you probably have to refine it a little bit. But hardline stuff and stuff like that, you could drastically just cut down your time and allow you to really spend and focus on the important work that's they're probably mostly hiring you for. Like maybe some more of the technical things.
Yeah.
Did you ever find, well, so you're talking about clipping and that, but also you mentioned hiring on freelancers to help work on stuff. So something beyond maybe the more rudimentary stuff, the more basic file setup stuff, but maybe some more technical work. You work with freelancers, you said, bringing them on for maybe larger projects or when you actually need help?
Yes, so that was another aspect of buying back my time. And I was searching for freelancers so here's the thing. When I say I'm a studio, I'm essentially a studio, but I'm a busy retoucher with more work than I can handle.
Mm-hmm.
So that allows me to delegate work to helpers and assistants and freelancers at a time.
Yeah.
It's becoming more and more of a huge advantage to have people that work closely with me to help me because it's getting busier and busier year by year. But when I speak to freelancers and they tell me what's your day rate? What's your availability? Well, my day rate is this. And I'm like, okay, I don't have those types of budgets. I'm essentially giving you a chunk of the budget I've got to do the job. But what I can promise you is I'm not going to give you something that's super complex or super difficult to do. It's a set amount of work in a set period of time. It's one round. I've worked with some clients where they send you the same file back and then you have to work on that file. And when it started off like, okay, I've done what you asked. And okay, can you just do this? And we've also edited the file. Here's the new file. You're like, okay.
Oh, wow. So yeah.
This is more work. As in, I say to my freelancers, I would never do this without paying you for that extra work. So I lost my train of thought. But it was essentially, I needed to buy my time back. And then some jobs, you'd get like, Emre, can you do this lookbook in a week? Or like, sure, we'll get files to you by Monday morning. And then Monday end of day, you're like, hey, just checking in, where are those files? Oh, the client hasn't made the selects yet.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. So we can deliver we can deliver it for following Monday instead of Friday. Like, no, it's a hard deadline. Can you?
Yeah.
And that's where you
Story
need to
of our life, right?
That's where you need to search for people that can kind of run with you a bit. And that's an ongoing search. Like I've got a few freelancers that I use a lot, and these guys know who they are, and they help me out so much. And I say it to them, like, thank you so much, as in so good, really good work. Thanks, and I'm always praising because people need that in this kind of work we do. It's nice to hear good job, like genuinely, because the amount of time you feel like you've smashed something, you've done a great job, and it's like great, approved. It's just like, okay, that's nice, but no one's like,
right,
well done. And so I be sure to praise my clients, my freelancers, pay them quickly. So yeah, and that's how I've got a little network. I want to say the biggest network, but I've got a few, and I'm always looking for talented people in different time zones because that's a huge benefit to me.
The time zone thing, yeah.
Work back to clients. So I had one girl in Melbourne, and when I'm going to bed, my evening now, I literally hand over to her, and then she will run with the project.
Oh, cool.
I'm like, and she's young, she's hungry, so she will work till like midnight and beyond sometimes, and I'm like, thank you so much. Can you do tomorrow? Yes. See you tomorrow. It's like great. Like
nice.
And then now she's traveling and she's in Berlin now, and so that's also. And then we're working alongside each other. She left her full-time job, and now I'm trying to give her as much work as possible because she's just very good. And then I've got one guy in Brazil, and Carlos, he's super good, and so different time zones a huge leverage I have with
That's great.
you know,
Yeah.
what I do, because not everyone can do after hours or weekends, like studios in London. Like that's what I say to clients when I'm pitching for work, when I'm like saying those soft hellos, like
Yep.
this is what I do. I'm more reactive. I'm cheaper because those studios in London, bless them, but they have a structure that they need to work by. So a job needs
Yeah.
to come in, a producer needs to pick it up, or a account handler needs to book it in and quote for it. And by the time they've done that, I could have essentially done the retouch, send it.
I know. I think that's
Or
an interesting thing you
yeah,
bring up because listening to you and how you're set up, it really resembles how myself and my business partner Emily, how we kind of produce too. We're very like small, incredibly nimble, fast team that can scale with a roster of freelancers, you know, who we're already familiar with. It's kind of like having, like you said, like those studios in London who have these like these kind of the steps they have to go through, kind of this red tape they need to mark through each one of them, go to a producer, do an estimate, all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Whereas, you know, you can get all that stuff done in a couple hours,
yes,
get the
yeah,
job going. You can scale if you need to. You're a lot more flexible, probably in terms of timing and stuff like that as well. So it's kind of and that compounded with now how, I mean, we can work remotely, we can work anywhere, we can be in different time zones. I can be across the world from you. It's so incredibly, you know, for the same, if not better quality of work, that even at a probably competitive price, I mean, the markups on some of those agencies can be a lot too, you know?
yeah,
So I think it's a really, I see like the model like this is flourishing. Some of the people I know that are, yeah, being more successful are like this, you know, you can be a smaller team or an individual that brings on freelancers for help if you need to, be busy, you can be successful like within this career, right?
yeah, for sure.
And be getting big jobs, big name jobs, big campaigns, all those kinds of stuff, you know? So
Yeah,
I think it's a really cool time to build up like a retouching studio and trying to get this work. And, you know, you can be competitive with kind of the larger studios and agencies and stuff because,
yeah,
you know, when it comes down to it, you want to give good work, you know, and
yeah.
if you
And
can
then
apply good
you
work
can
on time and
you can
budget.
match the work of these studios, these more like, bricks and mortar. They have a studio, they have an address, they have 20 desks, they have all this equipment, they have a server room, they have the fiber nets.
Yeah.
You can kind of compete with them to a point. I'm not I'm not going to go out of my way to seek the really big complex jobs. Those it doesn't interest me to a point because for me it's more simpler workflows, image libraries,
Yeah.
lookbook. Just when it's really complex and when it's like an ongoing project, I might be bored
You
by
get
the end
bored.
of it.
Yeah.
Or I'm regretting like, I just want this done because I've got 20 other jobs coming in and I
Right.
kind of want to just source them. So I'm never going to compete with the studios that are looking for those types of jobs that can make those jobs work, but I can compete on the quality. So that's where I can say, this is the same retouch you would get through one of those studios, but it's cheaper and it's quicker. And the word I used a lot is reactive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more reactive, and you can also guarantee that your work is going to go through me and only me.
Yeah.
Or in in the last year, I'm having to say I have a team in place, but I'm QC.
Yep.
And
Everything
you'll
goes
also
through me.
deal with me. Customer service, everything goes through me. Whereas maybe other studios have like, well, we have volume of talent, but then that, you know, extra hands doesn't mean increase in
Yeah. I
quality. It's
mean,
like one person might be better than the other. One person might be doing this than the other person. One might
right.
one might be better at hair than that person, and it's just a bit. It's a bit. You can have issues where some files don't match with others, and if a client came in last minute on a Friday evening for some rush work, who's to say the person they've been working with for the past 3 weeks isn't on a holiday and the junior's in the studio who has to then run with it? And that's where I
Yeah,
can be like,
exactly.
I can offer you just like consistency and um, just the most efficient version of what you could get. So I think
Yeah.
that worked a lot for me. So bigger jobs, bigger libraries that would come, and I would leverage those to get more work. I've just done this. It was very easy. Like, oh, you did 100. I had one client this year saying, I mentioned I've got an image library for eBay that I'm wrapping up, and then they said, how many images was that? And I said, oh, I think like 150, and I can easily do this with another retoucher within a few weeks. And then they're like, okay, that's interesting to know. The next message is, we've got several hundred images for this brand coming in, and you know, it was like one was Nike. We've got 250 images for Nike coming in at the end of the month. We can use someone who can kind of help with heavy hands, and that was another niche I found offering to studios was external heavy help. So essentially, I'm a freelance retoucher that can take an entire project or the entire round one and then give you files back. So that was another, I was able to use projects I did find and I did complete to leverage to get more of these types of more important projects for the studio, because they might not have time or people on desks or desks, computers, then Photoshop logins. They might not have all of that ready enough, quick enough to take on work. And they were like, Emre, can you do 20, 30 images at this rate per image? Here's a schedule. Can you do this? It's like, yep.
Got it.
Yeah. So that was how I was able to just compete a bit with studios in London and America.
I mean, it's smart. It's smart. Looks like it's going well. And, you know, before we were talking about cold calling and such like that, and you just gave an example there of, you know, talking with a client, hey, I'm wrapping up this project, and then they came back saying, hey, similar thing, can you do this? What are your thoughts on
not to show off? It was never to show off.
Show off?
You know, it was never to kind of.
Oh no, I'm just leading into this question with it.
Like, a tiny bit of it was a tiny bit of like, hey, I'm not just here sitting on my.
It was a strategic move in the conversation, right?
I'm busy. Doing this,
But you know, in terms of other promotions like website, social media, stuff like that, have you ever, you know, we always have an issue with, like, you know, a year passes and like, oh, I haven't updated the website. We got to have a whole bunch of new work we got to put up, and it never gets up. Social media, we're not posting anymore, but, you know, do we need to post? You know, do you use, you know, what's your thoughts on the social media aspect or online presence in terms of getting work for retouching, and has it precipitated in anything for you?
So good question. This was something I was thinking at the beginning of the year. So when I got the name Emretouch, I don't know if you noticed, Peter, it's my name plus the word retouch.
Yeah. I noticed that.
You got it. Some people, it goes over their heads. Was it EM Retouch? I'm like, okay, that also sounds okay. But it's M Retouch. Anyway, I might change. So I got the handle, and then finding the time to update the socials, it was just becoming less and less.
Yeah.
And then it became, logging into this account and then getting this photo off my computer onto there. Oh, why did the color get muted? Oh, because it's not RGB. Go back, resave. It's just like, oh, okay. And then I just fell out of sync with that kind of push, that kind of advertising. And it was okay, because also at the time I was working with a lot of agencies, a lot of other people's projects, so I couldn't really showcase that work anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I
could only showcase work that I sourced directly for myself. And then again, I was fortunate to be busy enough that I didn't need to constantly chase the socials. I just did this, new work. And then website is easier, Squarespace, drag and drop, did this. And then, but luckily, I haven't had the need to actively promote the channels or pay for, what's that called? CEO? No. What's where you...
Oh, SEO?
SEO, I didn't know.
Search engine optimization.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't need to do that because I was busy enough, and, year on year, busier than the last. So it's all looking good. But then this year, my friend Jack, who also runs another retouch studio in London, he was, he gives me work as well, overflow that they need help on. And then he just said, I said, where do you get these jobs from? And then he just said, people are just reaching out to us. And I know the difference between me and him is he's actively giving some time to the social channels.
Yeah.
And then they're building it so it looks very uniform and very consistent, and it's nice. And then they're promoting their in-house photographers that they're investing in. Mm-hmm. And then you can see over the time the photographers are getting more and more brand jobs. It's just like editorials. Oh, Nike. Oh, Adidas. It's just like, they're investing in the socials, and people find them that way. So I know for me that I know how important it is. Luckily, work's been consistent, so I haven't had to go to that side yet, but I know things I can improve are my socials, because as busy as I am, I'm still quite hungry for more.
I think that's the inherent nature of just owning your own business.
Yeah, like I'd love to
There's
achieve
always the
more.
next thing, right?
I'd love to achieve like only in the last only this year I've had a few people reach out to me because they saw work on my website. Majority of the time it's like quite organic. It's like, this person gave me your details. This person shared your
Yeah.
website. And then I've had retouchers find me through my website in other countries, like, hey, are you looking for, assistance? So I know how important that side of it is, and I'm looking forward to utilizing it when the time's right.
Hmm.
Because I'm still like head retoucher, accounts, HR. I am salesman. I am,
You wear a
so
lot of hats. You're busy.
yeah. There's only so much time I can give to. I already can get trapped in Instagram, just like happily doom scrolling.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I don't need to now. Like, okay, now I need to set aside time to format these like 5 GB files to like Instagram, and then do I mention this person? Do I mention the stylist? Did they mention me? No, and then, I just I I've got that waiting for me. So I've got a brand new website built. My
Oh,
friend
cool.
Giovanna, she just built me a nice new website, and we're
Nice.
populating it slowly. She's she's very meticulous with her background is the same industry, retouching industry, and fashion photography and everything. So she
Cool.
she knows that, okay, you need to be able to offer a clearer service. So whereas my current website is just an image dump of, look at
Yeah.
all these nice pictures, she's now separating it for like still life, beauty, brands, commercial. So I know I need to do that, and so people looking for a specific need have a thing they can click on instead of getting lost in this
Yeah.
big grid of photos. So yeah,
That's
so I
smart.
know I know socials are very important, and there is a lot of eyes on those.
Hmm.
So even if like 2% convert into paying customers, that's still a big market.
Could be definitely worth it. I mean, it's
We'll get there.
I was always my train of thought is always like we should get on it when we're busy because when we're not busy it's too late.
Yeah,
So it's always like top of mind, but it's like when you're wearing that many hats, you're kind of doing everything. I always come up with I always ask, I'm in my back of my head, I'm always like I see like advertisements for like a photographer offering this big course and these like
yeah,
seminars and all this. Part of me is like, or like some other retouchers offering courses, and like I'm like, when you're really busy, where do you have the time to do this? Unless it's really actually what you want to do, teach or something. I don't know.
or you're that focused, you can like be like, I'm going to do this digital ebook for the next 3 weeks, and
Yeah,
I'm going to
and
create
not
this.
take jobs.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Is like, where do you have the time to do this? Because again, you have a growing family as well. So it's just like, when the moment I have a day off, I need to take that for myself. But some
Well,
people can be like, I'm going to smash out another retouching video for 7 hours and edit in Final Cut. And
well, that's the other side of this too. And thinking back, a decade ago, single with no kids,
good times.
work was a lot different. It
Good
was like
time.
I would work 20 hours a day if I needed to.
Yeah.
But now, and I'm interested in your point of view of this. The second I had our first kid, or my daughter, it was like a little switch in my brain went off, and it was like, hey, 8 to 5 is I'm working now, and after that it's family. It's when my daughter gets home, it's this. And treasuring. All of a sudden, I guess the easy way to put it is like life wasn't about work anymore.
Yeah.
It was like, well, life's about family now. Like that's what I'm into. Like that's what I want to do. Um, what was your kind of transition into being more mindful of like a schedule, like you said, saying, hey, weekends are mine, or how do you deal with that, and before, but also now, do you still have issues? I mean, I think we always have scheduling issues at times, but
Yeah.
when do you feel like priorities may have shifted, even though you still feel kind of hungry, you said?
Definitely, it definitely shifted when I had my first child,
Yeah.
flatmate, as I call her.
An
My first child.
expensive flatmate.
Yeah, I've got
Rent
three
free.
flatmates I
Yeah.
live with. And I knew, okay, I've got to keep this small thing alive. There's,
It's important.
literally what I do is not important until you're like you're itching, like, yeah, I want to get back to my desk and I just want to
Yeah.
make money and, grow this thing. So I think for me, it was, again, I believe it would have been the same for you, a few late nights, because if you don't do it, who does it? Your client
Exactly.
is going to go to someone else.
I'm
They're
still
going to
trying
find
to
another
explain that to my
retoucher,
wife,
and then they're going to lose. And then I'm sure your wife probably was just giving you some evil stares when you're at your computer. She's
Oh
she's
my
just there
gosh.
like doing
We're not
this.
going to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been growing
We've
pains,
got
I'll call it. Yeah.
I've got like PTSD from when my second one came 2 weeks early, and I remember that completely threw me off because I was doing an agency in London where I was doing a project for Google, and that was really important. And then I gave it to someone else to do while I was in the hospital, and I wasn't happy with certain things, so I ended up redoing it. And then I had another job for a studio in New York. It was a big Amazon project, and it was gifts, and I was like, gifts are easy, but these gifts were like 36 frames
Not
each, and
easy.
it was mad. It was like these were like mini
Life
director's cut
changing. Yeah.
videos. I was like, this isn't what I signed up to, and I'm like working with it, and I can just see my wife's eyes because I moved my computer home. And I can see her from the couch, just staring at
Yeah.
me. I was like, there needs to be a better way to do this, and that's when the whole freelancers, delegating, being
Yeah.
able to offload some of the work, being able to say, yeah, you do it. I
Hmm.
trust you to do it. I'll check. I can give you feedback. So that was the shift. That was a big shift where I was able to get my weekends back because the more I advanced, the bigger my kids got, the more I was needed to be around.
Yeah.
That's when it was like, yeah, this is important, and I want to have a healthy relationship. I want to be at home, and when I need to, sure. When the kids are down, I might be like, okay, Marie, I'm going to the office. Luckily, I've got a nice big office, and it's really close to where I live, so I can just
Nice.
walk there in 2 minutes and close the door, do the work, and then go home at midnight and get into bed. And luckily, that doesn't rock the boat too much. And I think my wife enjoys the alone time now and again to
Oh,
watch, catch up with a book or something.
there you go.
But yeah, I think definitely having kids just was like, yeah, I need to be around more, and for me, I need to rest more. And
Yeah. I mean, it puts things into perspective, I feel. And part of me is like, I wish I would have done this earlier in my career
yeah.
because
Oh, have
I think
kids?
our kind of designate more time for my personal life than
Yeah,
work,
yeah,
even before kids. Because I think there's definitely like burnout's a real thing.
mm,
You can get mentally fatigued, physically fatigued sitting in a chair for 15 hours a day.
yeah, for sure.
There's all those kinds of things that aren't good for you. And, after a while, you're just kind of like not in a good mood or you're just
Yeah,
upset you took a job, but at the same time, there's some of that work ethic I feel is warranted because it has made a difference in growing a business and getting clients and meeting expectations.
yeah,
And I think that's part of the recipe too. So it's, I feel like it's kind of a balancing act,
yeah. Oh, yeah,
front
huge
loaded, but
balancing act. As in,
yeah,
luckily, my wife is after a few years of having kids while having this business, she now understands that it is important to me. As in, this is my baby. This is who I am. This is how I grow. Like, financially, it's a huge win for me to see this thing
hmm
I've grown, like
yeah,
take care of everything. And so she understands now. If I say I need to take my computer, I need to work this, she's like, okay, but just remember, like, plan ahead. So
yeah.
summer holidays,
That's
like,
the
is
key.
always like a month. July is always like busy in Denmark, so it's just like, okay, now I just need to get everything done before and after, and if anything needs to cross over, I need to do it because that client I've had for like 6 years, or that
Yeah,
client I don't want them to go anywhere else, or they're my biggest paying client. I can't say no. You got to do it, and there's a workaround for everything. So
that's the thing. Planning ahead,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah,
I never was a big calendar person. Everything was just in my mind or on my desktop or on a sheet of paper. Now I
yeah,
now I use a calendar. Now it makes sense.
yeah. I've learned actually Emily, who works with me, is early on, she taught me the importance of schedules and routines and,
Yeah,
planning things because, oh God, my head's always in the clouds otherwise.
yeah.
And you just kind of do things. But no, I can relate to all that.
Especially when clients are like, "Can you give us before any work's done? Can you give us a schedule?" It's just like, you
Yeah.
haven't even given me anything. Like,
Yeah.
and then I spent 2 hours making like a month long schedule with various batches and various rounds. and then the files never dropped when they were meant to drop.
I
And
know.
it's like, well, what's the point of all that stressful work you just made me do? And
I was just thinking, I was going through stuff the other day, and I think at least it's about 50%, maybe a bit more of projects when you set a schedule at the estimation time, they always get pushed because files aren't ready or selects aren't ready or client hasn't signed off on selects or something.
Yeah.
Which, always, and then, I'd say maybe 50-50, they're able to extend the timeline. Other times they're not. So it's just on you. It's like, well, okay.
The one I've got now,
brush fees,
it was meant to come today. The files have come to the client, but they haven't got the selects. So it'll probably start next week. And it's just like, but the deadlines, the goalposts, they can't move.
Yeah.
And it's like, is this okay? And then as a supplier, I have to be like, yeah, as in we'll make it work. I have no idea.
I mean, what are you supposed to say? It's like, no.
Exactly. It's just like, you never want to bring like blocks. You never want to be the person who's like, that doesn't work for me. And then it's just like, well, why rock the boat? As in, just run with it.
If you can make it work, why rock the boat? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can make it work. Well, we're kind of getting up to the end of the hour here already.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? You're on social media, website. Where can they find you?
So
Reach out.
Website is EMRETOUCH. So EM and the word retouch.
Nice.
.com. And that's where they can find me, and then there's details there. And Instagram is the same /Emretouch. I will try and update it because I have lots of nice work with lots of nice photographers that it should be on there.
Right, got to promote it.
Yeah, right. It's just so much extra work.
And anything fun and exciting coming up for you? Fun projects? Anything like that? Or the same old stuff?
As in, it goes so quickly. It comes in so quickly. So I'm doing I've done some nice projects for artist Fred again. Recent albums. Just worked on some cool UV light changing T-shirts that it's a collaboration with Mischief, and so that's cool. And then some lookbooks are coming in next week, and again some consistent clients, some more jewelry and anything and everything. As in, honestly,
you got a nice, well-rounded batch then. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's very last minute, and a lot of when I have when they say, "Are you available at the end of this month?" It's just like, for now.
Yeah.
But whatever comes in next week, I will most likely take. So
I'll pencil it in, but yeah.
Can we pencil you? It's like, do I want to give you a pencil? Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No, it's some nice
Life of
projects
a
coming in.
retoucher. Yeah.
I'm also looking for a little slowdown so I can just chill a bit.
Take a break. Yeah. Well, hopefully in the upcoming holidays you can find some time, huh?
As in, I've already been spoken for the last week of December.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
of course. That big project always comes in the week of, the end of the year.
Like, we're shooting in November. The retouch is that week of December. And then it carries on in the new year. So it's like, okay, well, it's always nice to start a new year with work. But it's just like, really? What's the point of making it so tight? Anyway.
Who knows? Well, hey, man, Emre, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Of course.
Great to talk with you. Great to hear kind of how you came up and where you're at these days and how you got to where you are. So,
thank you.
Like I always say, we gotta, this hour's too short. There's a whole bunch of other stuff we could talk about too, even some more in-depth stuff about retouching. So maybe we can have you back and talk with you even further.
Man, there's so much to talk about. I love this industry. Maybe. This is I'm so happy to be in this industry, and I'm so happy for where I am now. So I can talk about this for hours and
that's great to hear.
Make light of it because we shouldn't take it too seriously, but there's always
room. Well, no, I think it's great, and like you and some of the other retouchers we've spoken to on this podcast too, we should do like a round table, just have an hour or two of just chatting, and you get a lot out of it from all kinds of stuff. So,
can you do it in another country so we can just go somewhere?
We should do it in person. Yeah. In Cancun. No, not Cancun.
It's in your frogs.
We'll go somewhere cooler. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, man, thanks so much.
Drinks.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Cool. Let's do it.
Well, you have a good night. Thanks for talking.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah.
Catch you soon.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. And if you're tired of juggling a million things and want to take your retouching workflow to the next level, head over to VeryBusy.io and start your 30-day free trial. No strings attached, no credit card needed, just pure productivity. Link in the description box. If you like what you heard today, do us a solid, subscribe and leave us a rating. This will help us reach more creatives just like you. And I'll catch you next time on the Wrap Party podcast powered by VeryBusy.io.